Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Oneness Junkie podcast, hosted by me, Lydia Smith, a self-proclaimed Oneness Junkie. Oneness Junkie is a place to be inspired, encouraged, and supported. Learn from the individuals who are working to make the world a better place. Let's meet today's guest. Hello, everyone. Today, I'm sitting with Gib Broadhead, and I'm so excited to introduce you to him. Thanks for being here, Gib.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's dive in. So I want to share with the listeners how I met you. So I only met you 2.5 months ago in August. And I was searching. I feel like it was a divinely guided connection because I was searching for someone that could help me hone in my empathic, intuitive skills. And one day I was on my Facebook, and Facebook sent this friend suggestion that said, "You have 65 friends in common with this person. Maybe you should be friends." And I was like, who is this guy? So I clicked on his profile, and it said, I'm going to read it to you. It says, "I help highly empathic people manage energy and filter out negativity in their everyday lives." And I thought, oh my goodness, I need that. And it felt so awesome. I felt like the universe had provided this resource for me through Facebook. And I was so thankful for Facebook at that point. And so I messaged him right away, and I didn't hold anything back. I just told him everything I wanted to work on. And so we connected and had a phone call and felt like it was the right thing to work together. So we've been working together, and we just completed our time together this past week. And I asked Gib if he would be a guest on my podcast because I think what he does is so valuable and so helpful and can be so helpful to so many people that I want more people to know about Gib. So Gib is a intuitive healer, trainer, and a guide. And he also has the gifts of mediumship, which I hope he'll share with us today. So Gib, do you want to share a little bit about your background and how long you've been doing the work that you do, and what got you into this work that you're doing?
Sure. And again, thanks for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. I got started about 9 years ago. I've always had a gift of intuition. I've always known things. I've always had an understanding about things. I've had premonitions. I've had, visions of the future sometimes. And it was always a little bit difficult. Sometimes I'd be able to take it in and be like, okay, I can use this. But most of the time it was a little scary. So I found myself growing up being pretty closed off and shut down because, it's almost like you can see too much. So, and it had always been an issue. So about 9 years ago, I had a friend of mine, Jesse, who was on a job site on the East Coast, and he had a brain aneurysm, and he was put in the hospital on a ventilator, brain dead on a ventilator. And I found this out through a good friend of mine. And so, obviously I was pretty distraught, but I decided that I wanted to talk to him. And it's not like I could pick up the phone and call him. So I just sat down in my bed and decided I wanted to try to connect with him. I don't know why I did this, but it's just something that I decided to do. So I sat down and I closed my eyes, and in my imagination, I was talking to him. He was scared. He didn't know where he was. And I explained to him that he was brain dead and that he had an aneurysm and that he was in a coma in a hospital bed in the East Coast. And so when he found that out, you know, he felt calmed. He felt, like more at peace. He had an understanding about where he was because he didn't before. He just felt trapped in like quicksand or like a cave that he couldn't get out of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to bring some light to his situation. And and this is all happening in my imagination. And I'm just like, this is weird. And I felt like I was actually getting answers from someone else, not filling in blanks with my own voice. And so it was this very interesting and surreal experience. And so, I came out of it and was like, I didn't know what to think. I felt shocked because there was a part of me that knew that I was actually connected to him. But the other part of me, the logical part of me, was like, there's no way that I just connected with him. That's impossible. It's impossible. So, it was there was a bit of a conflict there, I guess, in some ways, but excitement as well. And so a
Mm-hmm.
few weeks later, they pulled the plug and he had passed, and it was the night of his service. And I decided that day that I wanted to talk to him again. So I sat down on my bed and I did the same thing I did before. And I reached out to him, and he came forward, but he was really busy and kind of like, hey man, why are you bothering me? And it was just this weird, like, it's okay that you reached out, but like, I'm really busy. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm sorry. And he was like pointing at these people he was working with. And so, later on, I discovered that, when people pass, they can go into transition, they can cross over to God or heaven or universal consciousness, whatever you want to label it. And I was disturbing that. And so you don't want to do that as a medium. You want to, if someone's in transition, you want to leave them alone. So that's something I found out after the fact. So again, it was just this very strange and surreal experience that felt like it was beyond my imagination. And that's when I decided to explore this more. I took a class here in Austin. I took two classes, actually, one on intuitive communication, and then about 3 weeks later, one on mediumship.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in the intuitive class, we used cards, and I was really good at it. I was giving people readings and getting information and giving them validation and giving evidence even. And so that was quite, an eye opener for me, is the evidence really that started to lock me into this work, to have a real belief that these things, that energy is a thing, it's a real thing. And so in the mediumship class, we had two deaf people taking the class. So there was two signers there as well, so they could
Mm-hmm.
interpret. It was a class of maybe 20 people, and it was over the weekend. And, it had a lot of good sort of test experiences, with doing sort of smaller exercises. But the final was to sit in a circle and give somebody else in the circle a reading in front of everybody. And so, I'm nervous and tripping out and wringing my hands, and my hands are sweating, and my heart is beating 1,000 times a minute. And I kept looking towards this deaf man and then turning away because I was scared. And I was like, no, I'm just going to read somebody over here on the right side, but
Who could hear me?
Yeah. It's so who could hear me? Right. And so, I mean, I guess there was that challenge as well. And so finally I put my hand up and like, all right, I keep, looking over this way because I don't want to look at you, because I am scared, but I know that you are the one I need to give the reading to, this deaf man. And so I sat up in front of him and I said, I've got your father here. I knew it was his father. I could just feel it. And he's like, I don't want to talk to my father. Like, he was he was an asshole. I don't want to talk to him. I don't have anything to say to him. And I just looked at him. I'm like, well, he wants to talk to you. He wants to talk to you. And somehow, I pushed through that whatever that was, that mud and the muck that you can sort of surround yourself in with past experiences and issues. And so I was shown a toy horse and a car. There's two images, and I was like, well, what is this? And so I told him, I'm like, I'm seeing like a toy horse and a car. And he's like, oh, it's the tractor. And I'm like, oh, the tractor. Okay. So basically I triggered a memory in him when he was a child. His father had bought a tractor, and it was a nice tractor. It was there to, take care of the farm or whatever they were doing out there in the country. And it was an important, important thing to his dad. And his son, this man I was doing the reading for, was very interested in the tractor. He was a kid. He was fascinated by it. So one day, he got up on the tractor and was able to start it. And it started moving and ended up in a ditch, and he wrecked it. Gosh. And so his dad came out and was, beside himself, and he took his son and he beat him. And he's hitting him over the head. And I found out later that's the reason why he became deaf. This is why he became deaf. And so his father is terrible tragedy. His father came forward to apologize, to tell him how sorry he was. When you cross over, you lose your ego. And so what happens is someone that was so closed off to you or mean to you, or you had issues with while they were in the body, if they cross over and lose the ego, you can connect with them and have a meaningful conversation. And so his dad came forward to apologize. And through this story, this deaf man, he started crying. He started having a release. And it was one of the biggest releases I've ever witnessed. He was, already when he would talk, he was very loud, because it's just part of the thing, I guess, with deaf people. And so his cries were pronounced, and everybody in the room was basically crying. And everybody was looking at each other going, what the fuck just happened? Everybody was
oh my goodness.
Yeah. Like, and I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah. What did they witness? Happened? They were witnessing
and
spirit.
What happened was a true release, a healing, using mediumship as a tool.
Yeah. Well, that's just an amazing story, and so neat that you had that experience and that confirmation. Prior to that, when you were a child, did you have any understanding of, did you have any religious background or any kind of a spiritual background at all that, that you were connected to spirit in any way?
I mean, we didn't really go to church much, but my grandmother was Catholic and my other grandmother was Mormon. So in some ways their views on God were pretty strict, and there was a lot of judgment. And I always viewed God as a judge. It's like, okay, I did this thing wrong. What are they gonna, am I gonna go to hell now? What's gonna happen? And so I think, and then, the other side of that was my grandmother and mother were also very intuitive. And so every once in a while, my mom would get like a tarot deck out and give me these little readings. And so I was fascinated by this, that because when she did it, she was good at it. And I could tell she was connected. And I'm like, this is interesting. And so it's confusing to tie in spirituality and religion.
Right.
It's hard to connect those dots. And what I've found through my work is it feels like spirituality encompasses everything, really encompasses all religions, because I feel like all pathways in some sense go to the same place,
source,
the same place,
which is what oneness is about.
That's what oneness is about.
Yeah, which is what the podcast is about. So thank you for sharing that. So back to when I met you, I really just came to you for a kind of a learning experience of helping me move some negative energy out, because I knew I had some to move. knew I had some stuck energy, but also I wanted to hone in on my gifts of empathy and being an energy reader and highly empathetic. HSP, which is a highly sensitive person. And I knew that you could, teach me. And what I want to share with our audience is it just happened to be the 30th anniversary. I met you probably like, the 7th or 8th or 9th or something like that. I think we had our first phone call, but our first session was, I think, on the 18th of August. And that was 10 days after the 30th anniversary of my sister's passing, and in a very tragic way that I was present to. And I had thought that over the 30 years with all the therapy, I immediately went into therapy to process it and talk about it. And I never had a problem talking about it and sharing about it and, telling people about it. Over all the years, it was just, I thought, resolved basically. And on our first session with you, my sister came forward and we had a very in-depth, you, me, and my sister had a very in-depth conversation. You were the bridge, the facilitator, the translator basically for me. And what I want to just share with the audience about that conversation is I thought it was resolved. What I found was that there was still some very lingering things to connect for me. And what the work with you did for me, Gib, was it flipped a switch. It flipped a switch that I didn't know needed to be flipped. And I instantly, not only that night that we did this, and I remember with the release, I physically had a physical, visceral reaction of the 30 years of energy was coming out of my chest. And, we were allowing that time for it to release. And then I felt exhausted, after that happened. And I went to bed. That it was late, this was like 8:30, 9:00 at night. And I went to bed, and the next morning I completely felt different. I had no knowledge that that needed to happen, but I attributed it in my mind to spirit. Spirit guided me to you, happened to be through Facebook. We got connected right at the 30th anniversary of my sister's passing. The work I wanted to do was not in an awareness of, that, but that needed to clear. I needed the switch flipped to do the God-given gift work that I want to do, helping others. And you and I've spoken before how you say that when you do work with people, you tend to find that things come up for people that need to get cleared so that they can be the healer, be the guide, be the trainer, be the intuitive for others. And so what would you say if people are listening and they're wondering if they have gifts of intuition or if they have the ability to connect at an energetic level? Are there some defining characteristics that you could help others consider within themselves? Like, what are some traits that a person might have that they would be able to identify that they are connected to their intuition? Like, just share a little bit about what people could look for in themselves if they're curious.
Sure.
And they don't know.
Right. So I believe that everyone is intuitive. Everyone, all of us, every single one of us. And the way you get better at it is by practicing. So if you want to be a faster runner, you run more. If you want to be quicker on a basketball, you play basketball more. So it's a muscle that you have to exercise. And the way you do that is by creating awareness around it. And so, and being open to it and putting it out there that this is what you want. You have to focus on the present moment, because that's where spirit lies. And if you're able to stay in the present moment, you can connect. And that's why you hear everyone talking about stay in the present moment, stay in the present moment. And there's a reason for that. The reason is not to escape from your issues that are happening in the past or the future. It's so you can connect with spirit. Spirit works through your imagination and talks to you through your imagination. You can hear things, you can feel them, you can see them, you can have a sense of knowing. Sometimes you can smell, sometimes you can taste, and it's all right there for you. You just have to be focused and open and have the proper guidance and tools to be able to really hone in on it.
That's wonderful. And so what you're saying is anyone can develop these skills, basically.
Yes.
And they just need to find support, and or, whether that's books or the internet videos, or, hiring a coach, to work with one-on-one. I particularly like the hand holding of the private, experience. So that's why I, worked with you. So along this journey that you've been on, and I think, did you tell us it? I know you've told me in the past, it was about you're coming up around 8 or 9 years, right? That you've been doing this. Have you had any roadblocks or setbacks or challenges that, have steered you, caused you any kind of a hiccup and thought like, I don't want to do this anymore, or any experiences, but then stayed the course and persevered? Tell us if there's been any times like that, because people have those in their lives, and I want people to know that those are normal, that's natural.
Well, it's, the hardest person to read is yourself. It's easy to read other people, to pick up on what they're doing. But the toughest person to read is yourself. So, I think one of the big challenges that I've had in the past is just trusting that this stuff is actually real, that it's actually, because some of the answers you get seem so far-fetched, so ungrounded, so, out there, that like, how does this even make logical sense? And what always kept bringing me back was when I would get evidence. So for instance, I did a session for a woman a few weeks ago, and one of the things that came up was that in a past life, she had been a nun in a convent, and it was part of her story, part of her journey. She reached out to me a few days ago and told me she just went on an interview, really liked these people. And so they invited her over to their office, and she went to the office, and, she just really was enjoying herself. And she asked about, what is this place? She just felt like it had weird energy. And the lady said it used to be a convent. It used to be a convent. So it's
That's
things
awesome.
it's things like that would always bring me back. And it's almost like the universe is telling me, hey, you're onto something here. You're able to interpret information and give it to other people to help them grow, to bring them light. And that's what fills my cup. That's what fills my cup.
Totally. And gosh, working with you, I so appreciated the way that it felt accelerated. I've worked with therapists before, and we all know you're not a therapist. You don't claim to be a therapist. But I really want to go into the conversation with you about how working with an intuitive as either a supplement or an accelerator to maybe some of the work that people might be doing now with their therapist, that it can be a nice add-on and help. And that was the one thing that I really appreciated about working with you that was different for me, and based on my experiences in the past, is that you were able to hone in on my energy and pick up what was necessary to work on. And then for the session, we would just work on that. And then I would have some breakthroughs quickly. And so tell me a little bit about who you're working with now and, what you're working on. You were sharing with me before about the therapist angle and the doctors that you're, considering teaching. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Over the past, I've been thinking about this for some time now. Back in the 20s, when someone would go see a doctor, they would go see an intuitive as well. And so they would get a diagnosis from the doctor and a diagnosis from the intuitive, and the doctor and the intuitive would work together to come up with a healing plan.
Wow, that's neat.
And so, subsequently there was this is basically at the beginning of the modern spiritualist movement, led by the Fox sisters. Fox sisters basically started the modern American spiritualist movement. And so there was a turning away by two of the sisters saying that it was a hoax, that what they were doing wasn't real, that it was, that they were basically not being, standing in integrity. And so subsequently what happened is the medical association separated any type of intuitiveness from the medical industry. So the medical industry is based on scientific fact and scientific fact only. And so, and that's the way it's been since then. And so my idea is that, that people that are looking for healing need more than just traditional therapy. There are energetic reasons why they have issues. There could be an energetic reason why, someone is afraid of drowning all the time. And maybe that's not because they had an incident in this life, it's because they had drowned in a past life. And simply by the fact of knowing that can release that energy. So there can be 1,000 different energetic reasons why things are happening to you that wouldn't make sense otherwise.
Right. And something that we've spoken about before is that you have a feeling, so you create a pattern and you keep repeating that same pattern that matches your belief system, that thought, like, oh, I'm afraid of drowning. So then you keep repeating that over the years, and it just gets really, heavy and deep, and that energy builds up, and, having that understanding and then even making like a release statement for your brain is so helpful to pass that. Like, this is not mine to be concerned about. Like, you can totally let that go. And that's what I've loved about working with, an energy healer in that way. So it's just so powerful.
Energy, it tells you where your responsibilities start and stop. You don't have to, especially as empaths, we tend to take on too much responsibility, too much of the situation. And when you tap into the energetic side of the issue, you start to get a true sense of what's actually happening, where your responsibilities begin and stop. And so what it is knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. So true. So we're coming up to the end of our podcast, and I just want to, I'm sure there's people who are curious about how they can connect with you, or if you're holding any workshops or classes or anything. We were talking about that you were considering putting together a like a Zoom workshop on a Saturday in January. Did you pick a date of when that workshop might happen?
I have. It's looked like it's going to be January the 22nd.
Oh, that's perfect for 2022.
2022, exactly.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good day. Yeah. Were you going to say something else? Did I interrupt you?
No, it's okay.
Oh, okay. So great. So what I'm wondering, if you don't have all the details hammered out, maybe should they just go to your website and let you know they're interested? Like, how should they communicate with you?
So you can go to my website at gibbroadhead.com. It's Gib with 1B. And you can sign up for my newsletter there. And as more information comes out, I'll be emailing people. You can also send me a friend request on Facebook or Instagram. My Instagram handle is Gibogram.
Yeah, and that's open, and you have a business page as well. So just go ahead and head over to Gib Broadhead on Facebook and like his page, and he can communicate and connect with you over there. We're coming, like I said, to the end, and I just am so grateful for your time today, Gib, and want to thank you for sharing your gifts to the world. I've benefited so much from knowing you in these last 2.5 months. And I encourage anyone who's feeling resonant or guided from this conversation to reach out, and whatever you're being guided to do, it's probably divinely guided. And I'm so grateful that I listened to my own inner guidance and sent you a message and we got connected. Do you have any encouraging words for our listener about anything that you would just kind of leave them with as far as related to their inner guidance, or any kind of inspiration that you want to share before we wrap up?
Sure. If you want to tap in, and a lot of people do this, so they'll try and they'll get information back that feels a bit scary, can feel, like a warning, or, something bad is going to happen. And what I would say, that when you're tapping into spirit, into the universal consciousness, however you want to put it, you're tapping into love. The messages that you receive will always feel loving. And if the message isn't loving, it's not a message for you.
That's wonderful. One of the things that I had an idea about this podcast was to provide something called mirror reflections. And I wanted to give my guest a gift back for my gratitude for my guest coming on the show. And what I want to do for you, and let the audience hear me, is I want to share with you as a mirror who you are to the world. And I want you to know that you exude the love that you just talked about, and the support that you offer to people is so genuine and authentic. And I am so grateful that I got to experience you. And I hope that the friends that we became on Facebook builds into a natural friendship in real life. So I really appreciate, I really appreciate meeting you. And just keep on keeping on, because you are a light in the world and you have work to do. And there are a lot of people who are going to benefit from working with you. You're going to continue to make the world a better place. And that's what this podcast is all about, is highlighting people who are already utilizing their gifts and talents to make the world a better place. And what I like to say is, when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. So thank you for all that you've done. All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
We've reached the end of this episode. If you'd like to continue with this inspirational journey, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. If you are a self-proclaimed oneness junkie, get yourself a t-shirt and spread the message of oneness in your community. And finally, if you have a story to share or know someone that should be a guest on this podcast, contact us at onenessjunkie.com. See you next time. And remember, when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. Compassion starts with you and me.